YouTube, what's up? It's your boy Armand for E equals MCU, and we are up upon phase 4 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it has debuted. Wandavision is finally here. Let's get into some spoiler discussion and talk about these episodes and what's going on. All right. Now, this is going to be episode 1 and episode 2 because they premiered at the same time. So we're going to do both of these at the same time. And just want to go over some theories, some things we all noticed, and see if we can figure it all out. So, starting with episode 1. First off, the intro to the show was funny. A little tidbit to notice. When they're riding through the neighborhood and Vision's in his Vision costume, like they're waving at the neighbor and he totally dips his head he puts his hat over his head so the neighbor can't see his face. I thought that was funny. There's like a lot of little tidbits like that in this show. The first episode pretty much dealing with Mr. Hart and his wife and them coming to dinner, and Vision's and Wanda's trying to figure out why there's a heart on the date of August 23rd. Very, the way they play this. First of all, let me say, just the way that the show is done is very authentic. It's very unique. Some people may not like it. Some people may be, they just want their superhero, action. And I don't think this is going to be necessarily that kind of show at the beginning. It's very much taking from the sitcoms of each era that they're doing. So that is the reason why it's rated G, because it's totally authentic, playing on what they could do in the 50s. So there's a lot of people out there, won't name any names, but they want that, they always talking about harshness and it's got to be rated R and TV 14 and blah 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 blah. You're not gonna get that with this show, especially early on in the episodes when they're doing throwback, because in the 50s and 60s things were not like that. And I thought a perfect example of that was in episode 2, where they're sleeping in the beds and the two beds are totally separate, because in that day and era they had to sleep separately. That was just common practice. And then her snapping the fingers and making the beds come together with the cover, everything over it. They played on that. So that's kind of an example. But shout out to Jack Schaefer, who wrote this and produced it. She's been at Marvel, still at Marvel, working on other things, man. She's really got this going on the head. So episode 1, great. Now, going into the scenes here, you get the kitchen scene with them talking about it. I thought something that was funny was when Vision went to work, he was doing, computational forms. And since he's a computer, I thought that was kind of funny. Still trying to figure out what does his tie mean. Because on his tie, he's got like a weird design on it with the 4 dots and then the 2 in the middle. What exactly what is that symbol? Now, I noticed that the guy he was talking to also had a tie on that had some kind of symbol on it. And I think I seen the same symbol on Agnes, or Agatha. We're calling it Agatha Harkness, but Agnes had a pin on that was very similar. So I'm kind of wondering if there's a connection there. But in that first scene when Agnes is introduced, she hints, no kids, big house. So I think that's going to be a very big Easter egg, especially going forward. And also she references her husband Ralph a lot. And Ralph is nowhere to be seen. Even at the magic show in the second episode, he was not there with her. So the real question is, who is Ralph? And is Ralph possibly Mephisto? Or is he the Grim Reaper? And we'll get to that a little bit later, just as far as with those 2 Easter eggs. But things also noticed, Mr. and Mrs. Hart come to dinner. For some reason, Wanda in the kitchen, when things were going awry, she yells Diane. and I still haven't been able to really figure out what that is. So if anybody has a drop on maybe what that could mean, or if that's code, or if that's something that we're possibly missing, leave it down in the comments for everybody to see. Also, Mr. and Mrs. Hart at the dinner mentioned children. They hinted at, not having children. So that's like a big theme of everybody in this Westview town, is really pushing Wanda and them to have children. Now, one funny thing I noticed when they were eating, Miss Hart kept saying that she was famished and she was starved and she was getting lightheaded. When they sat down at the table, she was smashing. They were eating breakfast food because the dinner went bad, but whatever, sausage, eggs, whatever it was, she was smashing. She was eating so fast and so quickly. Like I'm wondering if she was really hungry. Like the actress played that to the T. So shout outs to her. I know she was like the mom on that 70s show. So this is an A+ cast, man. Like everybody in the show really did their thing. I know in one of the interviews they talk about overplaying it, and when you're an actor, you're so used to being kind of refined and pulling back because of the subtleties of the camera. But because this is so authentic to the time, they really had to overplay a lot. And I saw a lot of interviews where they were talking to the director saying, hey, am I going too far? And he's like, no, go further. You can totally see that come across in the show, and I think they nailed it. So good job on that. The commercials, they have like a commercial break in between each one. The first episode was the Toastmate, and one thing I did notice on it, that it had like a face on it. It was like a toaster oven, but it had like a face. I don't know what that means, but there was a red dot on there that was blinking, and that was the only thing in color. And a reoccurring theme throughout all of these shows is that when something's in color, I think in theory that means that's either the real world breaking through to her world, or some kind of implications to that effect. But that's the first time that it was showed on here, and I did notice that. So I think that Agnes definitely knows what's going on, the way she's kind of playing her character and some of the things that she like says and puts in there. So I definitely think she knows what's going on. When things kind of go off the rails, and this is another thing that kind of happens throughout, at the dinner scene, Mrs. Hart was first telling her husband to stop it. He starts choking, and it's funny because it turns into like a Twilight Zone kind of thing where she's saying stop it, and then she turns to Wanda and starts saying stop it, and the way they played that was perfect, but it totally changes like she was telling Wanda. So I have a theory that Wanda's actually in control of all of this and is actually doing all of this. Why, I don't know. But I think she definitely is in control, because whenever something like that happens, and it's happened in both episodes now, she'll say stop it or whatever the case is, or somebody will say something, they kind of bounce out of it. I don't know if you guys notice, like they'll be in it, and then when they come out of it, it's almost like they reset, and all of a sudden everything's totally okay, and they don't mention what just happened. So really weird. I kind of think Wanda's creating this whole thing on the fly. And then by the end of episode 1, they show Sword is actually watching all of this somehow. You see like the Sword shield and everything and the logo. So you know that they're actually watching. So as you go into episode 2, now let's get into episode 2 on this. The first scene, like I said, they were in the bed. The way they played that comedy up was hilarious. Vision being all scared of what the knocking noise was. And then in episode 2, the reoccurring thing in this was the knocking noise. That knocking noise was the same knocking noise throughout the whole entire show. So whatever that knocking noise is, it's not what they're playing it to be in their reality, but it sounds like it's usually something crossing over into their reality. So the first time, you hear the window and everything, you hear the knocking noise, and they do the comedy spoof of it. So then as you get later into the episode, by the second scene, Vision, he mentions people seeing through the act that they're doing for the magic show. And I thought this was key, because he says, people aren't you worried people are going to see past this? And Wanda replies with, well, that's the point, because real magic, everything is fake. So that is another clue that made me think that she's actually in control of this. This is actually her doing. By the third scene, that's when she finds the helicopter in the weeds with the sword shield on it, and it has like some other scribes on it or something. And Agnes kind of, jumps in and says, hey, star of the show, like, you know what I'm saying? So that's what makes me think that she's definitely knows what's going on, or maybe she's controlling Wanda, something to that effect. But she makes that point. She talks about children again, hinting at it. And then they go on to meet, Dottie and the other girls. Now this is also interesting because this is where they meet Monica Rambeau's character. And Monica Rambeau's character said that her name was Gwendola or something, but when the way she said it was like she couldn't remember or didn't know. Now either she's undercover for SWORD and can't tell her real name, or maybe she just really doesn't know and made up a name. That remains to be seen. We'll figure that out. One of the big things that was stated as well on here was that everything's for the children. That was a big theme of this episode. For the children, for the children. The way everybody would repeat it also kind of gives you a hint at what I think the key is here, and I think that's for Wiccan and Speed. So I'm thinking Mephisto has to be behind this. Maybe Wanda made a deal with the devil, and she's gonna give him the children, and that's how she gets Vision back. Because there were some things said at the table there. They were like the devil was in the details, and then Agnes says, yeah, that's not the only place he's in. So they definitely are like sliding little stuff in there if you can catch it. Now, at the scene where she's talking to Dottie and she says, I mean you no harm or whatnot, I thought it was kind of funny that, when that happens and then, the radio starts yelling out Wanda's name, and, she says, I mean you no harm, and Dottie says, I doubt that. And then right after that happens, the glass breaks and her hand's bloody, which the blood again was in color and everything else is in black and white. And then Dottie goes on like nothing happened after, she says, I cleaned it up myself. So weird. Other tidbits for this episode was Vision, basically got drunk off of a big red chewing gum, which I thought was kind of funny. It was given to him and he ate it and went in his stomach. I'm not sure why that would make him drunk, but definitely with him not being human, would kind of mess him up. So the way he played that, I just say as an actor that, actor's choices that he made, the whole magic show was hilarious because he played it like he was drunk, and he was basically telling and showing them the real magic show as that was hinted at before, and then Wanda was trying to cover it up. Now this was called out in the scoop by the new Roger Wardell account on Twitter months ago. I mean, like way back in like last spring. Or no, I'm sorry, no, this may have been I think it was December. He called this out and said that this would happen, and it happened exactly as he said it would. He also called out that Mephisto would be one of the villains, and that the Grim Reaper would be one of the villains, and their presence was hinted at throughout the whole episode. There were a lot of Easter eggs with things where I was seeing shadows that kind of looked like the Grim Reaper, and different things that kind of showed that it could be Mephisto in the works there. So you guys go back and really, really watch it. Look at the little things. I think there's a lot of hidden Easter eggs in there in reference to those too. Now, the Roger Wardell account also stated that Vision is not Vision, and that he's someone else. So so maybe Vision is not really back, or the idea of Vision is just that of what it is, and it's actually somebody else manipulating the situation. So keep an eye on that going forward. Now, before I get out of here, the last thing we'll talk about is the Beekeeper. Beekeeper pops up at the end with that same noise, and then you see him coming out of the sewer, and Wanda just says no. Very reminiscent of, or maybe forthcoming of, what she's going to say with the whole no more mutants, or no, maybe there are mutants, or however they're going to play that. But that was very spooky. Who's the Beekeeper? We don't know. They had a sword shield on the back, a sword logo, on the back of the Beekeeper. So it remains to be seen, but that is a big mystery. I think there's some hints to that as to where that may go. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much between the two episodes so far what I noticed. I did notice that Wanda has on a necklace that looks peculiar and it kind of stands out. And usually when filmmakers do things like that with jewelry and stuff and they make it stand out, it's for a reason. It will play a purpose and it will come back and mean something bigger. So keep an eye on that. Right now, that's all I got, guys. That's all I was able to watch down. Oh, this one more thing. There was a second commercial on that second episode, and I just thought it was like a little funny tidbit that it was called the Strucker watch, and it had like the Hydra symbol on it and everything. Of course, referencing Baron von Strucker, which he's the one that created her. So that's why you get that. So that was a good Easter egg. But yeah, that's all I got out of the 2 episodes. Let me know what you guys think and some of the theories and some of the things that you may have noticed down in the comment section. Make sure to like, share, subscribe. And until next time, I'm out.